Have you ever asked yourself, why do some people seem to have it all while others endlessly chase and fall short? Why do 2% of people live the lives they dream of, while the other 98% remain stuck, stressed, or simply surviving? It's not talent, it's not intelligence, it's something deeper, something rarely taught and often misunderstood. Today, we uncover the 5 reasons 2% succeed and how you can join them. Every day, the vast majority of people roll out of bed with a checklist already whispering in their heads. What do I need to do today? How do I get through this meeting? How do I hit my targets, get that project done, reply to that overflowing inbox, and finally make it to Friday without collapsing from exhaustion? That's the loop, the cycle that 98% of people live in. It's a routine fueled by external demands and internal pressure to stay afloat, to survive, to not fall behind. But surviving is not the same as living. And going through the motions is not the same as moving forward. There's a different kind of person though, a rare kind. Only about 2% of people ask a radically different question before their feet hit the floor in the morning. Not what or how, but why. Why am I doing this? Why does this matter? Why should I care? And when you start from why, everything changes. Let me tell you about James. James wasn't a scientist. He didn't have a degree in aerospace engineering. He wasn't even part of a mission control team. He was a janitor at NASA in the 1960s during one of humanity's most ambitious quests, sending a man to the moon. One day, a reporter saw James sweeping the floor and asked him what his job was. He could have said, I clean hallways or I take out the trash. That would have been factually accurate. But James said, I'm helping put a man on the moon. Now, take that in for a moment. That's not a job description. That's a mission. That's a man who understood the why. He saw himself not as a cog in the machine, but as a vital part of something extraordinary. His broom wasn't just sweeping dust. It was clearing a path for dreams to take flight. When your purpose is big enough, you don't just work, you contribute. You don't just show up, you show up on fire. You're no longer clocking in and clocking out. You're pouring yourself into something that matters. The thing is, James didn't need a fancy title to find purpose. He didn't need applause or promotions or public recognition. All he needed was a reason. And once you find your reason, your why, you stop waiting for someone to validate your worth. You start to live from a place of deep conviction that what you do, no matter how small it may seem to others, matters in the bigger picture. The 98%. They chase paychecks, positions, and promotions. They count hours and crave weekends. They focus on the next bonus, the next rung on the ladder, the next temporary fix to a much deeper hunger. But the 2%, they chase meaning. They ask harder questions, even if the answers take time. They are not driven by what they can get, but by what they can give. And in doing so, they experience a kind of freedom and fire that the rest only dream about. When you live with a powerful why, obstacles become part of the journey, not excuses to quit. The rejections, the failures, the detours, they all become fuel, because if your why is strong enough, you'll find the how. You'll rise earlier, you'll stay later, you'll endure longer, because there is something within you that cannot rest until it's fulfilled. Purpose isn't passive. It doesn't wait to be discovered. It has to be chosen and then fought for every single day. It's easy to say, I'll do it when I have more time, or once I have the right opportunity, then I'll figure out my purpose. But that's backward. Purpose doesn't show up after success. Success shows up after purpose. The people who change the world, whether they're CEOs or janitors, don't wait for clarity. They create it, they declare it, and then they live it. Living with purpose doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you'll move anyway. It doesn't mean the path will be easy. It means you'll walk it with intention. Because knowing your why doesn't remove the weight. It just gives the weight meaning. And when you carry something meaningful, you carry it differently. You see, the 2% don't necessarily have more talent. They're not always the smartest in the room, but they have a lens through which they view the world, a lens of contribution rather than consumption, a lens of connection rather than competition. They wake up and ask, how can I leave this place better than I found it? And that mindset changes everything. We live in a world that celebrates outcomes. We reward the fastest, the loudest, the most visible. But purpose purpose is often quiet. It's found in the unnoticed acts, the small sacrifices, the things no one claps for. But those things, those seemingly insignificant acts done with great intention, are what actually move the world forward. A janitor with a mission can inspire an entire organization. A teacher with a sense of purpose can spark the next generation of leaders. A parent who leads with why can raise a child who changes history. When you lead with purpose, you lead from the inside out. And that's the difference, because you can't fake purpose. You can fake enthusiasm, you can fake expertise, but you cannot fake conviction. People feel it when you're connected to something deeper. They trust you more, they listen differently, they follow, not because they have to, but because they want to. This is not about being perfect. It's about being anchored. When everything else feels uncertain, when circumstances shift, when setbacks come, when success feels far away, your why becomes your anchor. And if that anchor is real, it will hold you steady, it will remind you why you started, it will give you the strength to keep going, especially when it's hard. So the real question is this: what's your moonshot? What's the thing that makes sweeping the floor feel like a sacred act? Because once you find that, it's no longer about the job, it's about the mission. And when your life becomes about the mission, you don't count the cost, you count the privilege. In a world chasing what's next, be the one who starts with why. Not just because it makes you more successful, but because it makes you more human, more courageous, more alive. You know what's easy? Scrolling, waiting, avoiding. It's effortless to lose ourselves in distraction, to convince ourselves that there's more time, more chances, more tomorrows. We procrastinate. We dodge the hard conversations. We dodge the work that makes us sweat. We hide from the mirror, from the pain, from the truth. It's easier to stay where we are, where it's familiar, predictable, safe. But you didn't show up here today to be comfortable. You showed up because somewhere deep inside you believe there's something more. You've caught a glimpse, maybe just a flicker of what's possible if you stop running away and start running toward the discomfort. That discomfort, that sting of challenge, of uncertainty, of effort, that is the birthplace of every transformation. In a powerful study by Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck, she laid out a framework that changed the way we understand achievement. She identified two types of mindset: fixed and growth. The fixed mindset believes that talent is static, intelligence is unchangeable, and failure is a final verdict. The growth mindset, on the other hand, sees failure as a stepping stone, not a tombstone. It sees potential as elastic, not fixed. And here's the hard truth: most people live in a fixed mindset. Most people avoid discomfort because they've been taught, whether by school, by culture, or by fear, that discomfort equals danger. That struggle means you're not good enough. That if it doesn't come easy, it must not be meant for you. So they stay where it's comfortable. They stay average, not because they're incapable of more, but because they've made peace with the lie that more isn't for them. But then there's the 2%. The 2% are different. They don't run away from discomfort. They run toward it. They don't view failure as proof they're not enough. They view it as feedback. They understand that discomfort isn't the enemy, it's the compass. It points them toward what matters. It shows them where the growth is. And let's be honest, growth is never convenient. It's never tidy. It rarely fits into your schedule. It demands more than you want to give, at times when you least want to give it. It asks you to be vulnerable, to try and stumble, to get back up while everyone is watching. And that's why only 2% do it. That's why the other 98% pull back, make excuses, settle. Because leaning into discomfort doesn't just demand action, it demands courage. But that courage is where the magic is. Think about Thomas Edison. More than 1,000 failed attempts before he finally got the light bulb to work. Most people would have quit at attempt 5 or 50 or 500, but Edison wasn't playing the same game as everyone else. He wasn't chasing approval. He wasn't trying to avoid failure. He was chasing progress. And when asked how it felt to fail 1,000 times, he didn't flinch. He said, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps." You see, that's how the 2% think. They reframe failure. They redefine discomfort. They don't let the pain of now rob them of the progress of tomorrow. And they aren't superheroes. They don't have more hours in the day or better luck or some genetic gift the rest of us lack. What they have is a different relationship with discomfort. While the rest of us are asking, how can I make this easier? The 2% are asking, how can I make myself stronger? Because when you run toward discomfort, you realize something profound. Discomfort isn't a wall, it's a doorway. And on the other side is everything you say you want. Confidence, purpose, mastery, fulfillment. None of these things come from avoiding pain. They come from walking straight into it and saying, I'm not afraid of what this is asking of me. The 2% don't just chase goals, they chase growth. And here's the paradox. When you stop needing things to be easy, life gets easier. Not because it is, but because you are. You get stronger, more resilient, more grounded. And soon what used to feel like walls now feel like stepping stones. What used to scare you starts to shape you. Because you've trained yourself to lean into the fire, to step toward the challenge, to embrace the uncomfortable moments that would have broken the old you. And the beautiful part is that none of us are born into the 2%. We choose it. You don't need a degree or permission or some perfect plan. You just need one brave decision to stop waiting for easy and start preparing for hard. You have a choice. You can keep scrolling, keep numbing, keep hiding, or you can decide right now to become someone different, someone who runs toward discomfort because you've realized that the discomfort is where your future lives. You weren't made for the sidelines. You weren't made to shrink. You were made to stretch, to bend and break and rebuild, to grow into someone who does hard things, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. That's the 2%. And every day is an invitation to join them. So when fear whispers that you're not ready, answer it with action. When the road gets steep, don't look for the exit, look for the next step. When it hurts, when it's messy, when you're not sure you're going to make it, lean in. Let it refine you, not define you. Because discomfort isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. And if you listen, if you stay in the room, if you do the work, it will turn you into someone the old you wouldn't even recognize. The 98% will keep looking for the shortcut. Let them. You take the long road, the hard road, the road that rises. Because you know what's on the other side, and you know it's worth it. The truth is, the world doesn't need more people chasing attention. It needs more people anchored in integrity. People who can stand firm when the wind changes direction. Leadership isn't a title or a podium. It's a quiet resolve in the heart. It's the decision to show up with purpose long before anyone's watching. Look around and you'll see most people grasping for influence, hoping their voice gets louder without ever tuning into their inner voice. But the rare ones, the 2%, they understand something deeper, that before you can lead anyone, you must first lead yourself. We live in a world where applause is mistaken for alignment, where charisma is mistaken for character. But true leadership isn't loud. It's not flashy. It's forged in silence. It's built in the small, invisible decisions, the ones no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. It's brushing off excuses, saying no to comfort, and choosing to do what's right over what's easy. It's what you do when nobody's clapping. That's where personal leadership lives. There's a powerful line from a Navy SEAL. Under pressure, we don't rise to the occasion, we sink to the level of our training. And that's not just about combat. That's about every conversation, every meeting, every difficult choice in life. If we haven't trained ourselves in discipline, emotional control, and inner clarity, we don't just stumble, we shatter. And when you shatter in leadership, others bleed. That's why the 2% take their training seriously. Their discipline isn't for vanity, it's for responsibility. Oprah once said, the greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change their future by merely changing their attitude. That's not motivational fluff. It's the foundation of transformation. When you lead yourself, you realize that mindset isn't a result of circumstances, it's a choice. It's waking up and choosing perspective, choosing courage, choosing not to be a victim of the noise around you. That's not easy, but it's necessary. The majority, the 98%, spend their lives trying to bend the world to fit their comfort. But the 2% bend themselves into the kind of people who can shape the world. They don't start by asking, who's following me? They ask, am I the kind of person worth following? That's the hard question. That's the mirror moment. And most avoid it because it demands accountability. It demands change. But the ones who lean in, who do the inner work, they don't just lead better, they live better. Because at the end of the day, leadership is not about control, it's about influence. And influence starts from within. When you lead yourself, your habits, your thoughts, your choices, you become a beacon, not by demanding light, but by becoming it. The 2% don't wait to be empowered, they empower themselves. And in doing so, they show the rest of the world what's possible. We live in a culture obsessed with speed. Everywhere you turn, there's pressure to be faster, richer, thinner, louder. We crave instant gratification like it's oxygen. We've convinced ourselves that if success doesn't come quickly, it must not be meant for us. Social media feeds this lie, showing us highlight reels of overnight millionaires, instant fame, six-pack abs in 6 weeks. But here's the truth no one wants to hear. Real success doesn't work like that. The 2% know this. They aren't chasing the next big win, they're planting seeds. While the rest of the world hunts, they farm. And farming is quiet, it's repetitive, it's unglamorous. But it's powerful because farming isn't about today, it's about tomorrow. The 2% play the long game. They understand the power of compound growth. In money, sure, but also in things that can't be measured on a spreadsheet. Self-respect, trust, craftsmanship, resilience. These things grow in the soil of consistency, not in dramatic leaps, but in slow, almost imperceptible progress. The kind you can't show off, the kind that doesn't get likes. Warren Buffett didn't wake up a billionaire. He didn't hit a lucky stock or ride a viral wave. He played a quiet, patient game for decades. He kept doing the right thing day after day, knowing that the magic isn't in the moment, it's in the momentum. It's in the discipline to do boring things well, long after the excitement fades. That's what the 2% understand. They don't need applause, they don't crave recognition, they just show up. Again and again and again. Most people sprint until they're tired and then stop. The 2% walk with purpose. They pace themselves. They trust that the path is working even when it looks like nothing is happening, because often the most important growth is invisible. It happens under the surface, like roots spreading before a tree breaks through the ground. That kind of growth takes time and courage and faith. There's a kind of nobility in staying the course when everyone else quits, when the results are slow, when it's not fun, when nobody's watching. That's the test. That's the separation. Anyone can be excited in the beginning, but the 2%, they keep going, not because it's easy, but because they've chosen a deeper kind of reward. They're not playing for the weekend, they're playing for the. So if you're moving slow, don't lose heart. If it's hard, keep going. You might just be part of the 2%, and that means you're playing a game most people don't even know exists. The truth is simple, yet inconvenient. If your dream ends with you, it ends entirely. If the only person who benefits from your ambition is the one staring back at you in the mirror, then that dream dies the moment you do. But when your mission lives in the service of something far greater, something beyond your own comfort or recognition, it becomes a fire that refuses to go out, even when the winds of doubt, fear, and fatigue blow hardest. That kind of mission doesn't need constant motivation because it draws from something deeper, conviction. There's a difference between chasing a goal and answering a call. The first is self-serving, the second is world-changing. People who serve a vision bigger than themselves don't get out of bed just to meet deadlines or hit targets. They rise with a responsibility to something sacred, a future that doesn't yet exist but must. And that responsibility doesn't get lighter when things get hard, it gets louder. Think of Malala, a teenage girl from Pakistan who dared to say that girls deserve an education. For that, she was hunted, shot in the face, and left for dead. Most would have faded into silence, swallowed by fear, but not her. Because Malala wasn't just fighting for her own right to learn, she was standing up for millions of girls silenced by systems, by cultures, by fear. Her vision wasn't fueled by ego, it was anchored in empathy. That's why she didn't just survive, she led. That's why she didn't just speak, she ignited a global movement. because she wasn't the message, she was the messenger. The world divides quietly into two kinds of people: the 98% who wait for applause before they act, who measure their worth in followers, likes, and status, who ask, what's in it for me? And then there's the 2%, the ones who see something broken in the world and can't look away, the ones who serve a vision that may never get them recognition, but will always give them meaning. The 2% don't need to be pushed, they are pulled by purpose, by principle, by a deep belief that their life only matters if it's used to lift someone else. That kind of clarity doesn't come from a textbook or a boardroom. It comes from pain, from resilience, from seeing injustice and choosing to show up anyway. And it's not reserved for heroes or Nobel laureates. It's available to anyone willing to ask a harder question. Am I living just for myself, or am I leaving something that will live beyond me? The 2% serve something bigger than ego, bigger than success. They serve the possibility of a better world. And in doing so, they don't just create change, they become the reason others believe it's possible. So why do 2% succeed? Because they choose purpose over comfort, growth over ego, service over status, patience over shortcuts. And they start with why every single day. The good news, you don't need to be born into the 2%. You just need to choose to act like one today, right now, because once you do, the world won't just change around you, it will change because of you.